One last thing to remember about domain events is where they will ultimately be consumed. You just saw that we've defined the domain events as part of our core domain model. One way to keep these domain events from getting bloated is to make sure they only have the information required for their particular consumer, which will mostly just be within the same domain model. When your bounded context needs to expose events beyond its boundaries, it's likely you'll want to translate your domain events into some kind of cross-domain type. This is because your domain events may not include enough information within the event itself for the external system to efficiently act on it. In our example, if we were to expose an event that included an appointment, it would only include the IDs for the doctor, patient, client, room, and appointment type because that's how we define the appointment. These IDs would at worst be meaningless outside of our bounded context and at best would require the external system to make additional requests to get the details about these other objects, and that would be pretty inefficient.
To avoid this, we can handle the domain event within our domain, for instance in a service like this one, and expose a different event to external systems via some kind of messaging infrastructure. In this example, you can see that we are creating a custom event using a dynamic type, and we are populating it with the actual details from the appointment. Then we are publishing this message for external consumption. You can imagine that inside the fetch client name, patient name, appointment type, etc. section, we're using a repository or something similar to pull that information out of our domain. It may be valuable to do something similar when raising events to your UI layer from your core. In the example we just completed, we wrote a domain event handler directly in the UI. This works, obviously, but if you find that this couples your UI too closely to your domain, or if the information your UI event handler needs goes beyond what your domain event carries, you may want to raise a custom event specifically designed to provide your UI layer with the information it requires. You can do this using the same approach that we just showed for cross-system events.